Alright guys, I am back with my review of the first episode of American Horror Story Coven. I almost said Asylum, I got so used to saying that. But so far, and I don't really know anything about this show. I haven't looked it up or seen any of the pictures or anything they've put out on Facebook. So I'm kind of just going into this completely blind. It's apparently about witches. And we see this girl, and she's having sex with her boyfriend, and he just starts bleeding from the nose and eyes and just all over the place. And then we find out her mother tells her that her family has this genetic affliction, and it skips a generation. Her grandmother had it, and she's a witch basically. So she's got to go to boarding school, and all these guys come in suits and they pick her up, and she's screaming and freaking out, but her mom sends her away. So she ends up at this school, and she walks in, and it's empty. And then she sees these figures running around wearing masks. They throw her on a table, they act like they're going to sacrifice her, and then we find out they're just messing with her. They're just students also. And it's these three girls. One blonde girl is a movie star or something. Another girl is kind of special. And the third girl, I think, is Precious. But I might have to look that up. I never saw Precious, so I can't be 100% sure on that. But then we meet the head mistress of the school, and it's Lena Winters from American Horror Story Asylum. And she's telling her now about the history of their kind. Okay, so Lena Winters, the head mistress, and I'm going to quit calling her Lena Winters once I figure out what her name is. She's telling the new girl about the witches and how their numbers are dwindling down because a lot of people, once they figure out that they have this genetic affliction, they stop reproducing. So they're kind of going extinct. And she says most witches are just average, but there are supremes. And these are people who have all the gifts. So I assume this new girl is going to end up being a supreme. And then she tells her about how witches have been persecuted, and it gives us a flashback of this girl who had the ability to bring things back to life. And she was burned at the stake, and I'm pretty sure this girl was Sister Mary Eunice. So I think she's going to be back, and she's going to be pissed off. Then it cuts to Fiona, who is played by Sister Jude from Horror Story Asylum. And her husband died, but he had this research center he funded. So she goes in and she says she wants the medicine they've created. And at first the guy's like, I can't give it to you, we've only tested it on animals, and you should just see a plastic surgeon. And she demands the medicine. So then we see her in her hotel room, and she's drinking and doing cocaine, and she's all freaked out. And the doctor comes in, and he's like, what do you want now? And she says, I've been taking this medicine, nothing's happening. I want you to double the dosage. And he says, look, I can't help you any further. We're humans. We die. And basically she wants the medicine to help her stay young. And because it's not working, she's getting pissed off. And he says, you can't stay young forever. It's not possible. Human beings will rot and die. We're organic. So I thought this was a cool scene here. And he actually quits. And when he goes to leave, we find out Fiona's a witch. And she causes the door to slam shut. She throws him against the wall. And then she kisses him. And while she's kissing him, she gets younger and he gets older. So I guess Fiona's probably a supreme, seeing as she has the power to like throw him around and age him. But I guess we have to see about that. But yeah, this was a really cool scene here. So back at the boarding school, the four girls are sitting down for dinner. So I guess that's it. That's the entire school. And they're making fun of the butler, some weird guy named Jeeves who has no tongue. And he leaves, and the girls kind of get into an argument. They're talking about their powers, and we find out that the special girl is clairvoyant, and the movie star girl used her powers to unscrew a light that fell on her director and killed him. So she probably has some more powers we haven't seen yet. And then Precious is a human voodoo doll. So she gets pissed off at the movie star and stabs her hand with a fork. And of course the wound appears on the movie star, but Precious says, "I don't feel anything, I'm a human voodoo doll." And then she puts a knife to her throat and says, "I'll do it." That was pretty damn awesome. So it's kind of like a witch version of the X-Men. The headmistress is fixing up some potions and stuff, and Fiona shows up. And we find out that Fiona is a Supreme, or she calls herself the Supreme. I don't know if there's more than one. I'm pretty sure she said there was more than one, but Fiona says that the headmistress is the only child of the Supreme. So the headmistress is her daughter, and she wants her to realize her full potential, and she also thinks she's holding back the students, and they need to be prepared for a war, because that girl was just burned at the stake when they found out she was a witch, and she feels that this is the Salem witch trials all over again, and that the headmistress needs to prepare these kids to defend themselves. Because with Facebook and Twitter, you can't hide anymore. If they do anything out of the ordinary, it's going to be videotaped and go viral. So that the Supreme thinks the headmistress needs to be prepared for this, and she wants to teach the girls herself. Okay, so Zoe is the name of the new girl, and I thought she looked familiar. She's Violet from the very first season of American Horror Story. So Zoe and the movie star, who was Madison, go to this college party. And at this party, Zoe starts flirting with this fraternity guy who is Tate, Kit Walker. And they're talking, which is kind of funny because they also had a relationship in the first season of American Horror Story. But Madison goes off on her own, and she ends up getting drugged by this fraternity guy. And he takes her upstairs, and he rapes her, along with some of his friends who are videotaping it. So Zoe's talking to Tate, and they're getting along and everything, and then she's looking around for Madison. She's like, "Where's my friend?" And Tate says, "I don't know, let me check upstairs." So he goes up there, and he sees what's going on. And he freaks out. He's like, "What the hell do you guys think you're doing?" He tries to get the phones, which they were using to videotape everything, and they run off, and they get on this bus. And on the bus, the rapist punches Tate and knocks him out. And Zoe finds Madison, and she's like, "Oh my god, this is terrible. I'm not going to let him get away with it." So she chases after the bus, but she can't catch him. They're getting away. And then all of a sudden, Madison walks up next to her, and she uses her powers to flip the bus over, and it explodes. So I thought this was really cool here. The way she used her powers to just kind of flip the bus over, and I mean, they definitely deserved it. Okay, so Fiona is awesome. She goes to the school to take the girls on a field trip, and Madison is being kind of rude to her. So Fiona calls her a witch bitch and throws her against the wall. And eventually Madison finds out that Fiona is the Supreme. So they leave, and they're walking around in Louisiana. And that's another interesting thing about this show, is it all takes place in present day. It wasn't really like that for the first 2 seasons. But they're walking around Louisiana, and the special girl ends up in some kind of tour of this old house. So Fiona and the others show up, and the tour guide's like, "You guys can't just rush in here and become part of the tour," and Fiona uses her Jedi mind trick on the tour guide. So she's explaining what happened in this house, and we get another flashback here. And we find out that the house belonged to this slave owner. And it's this woman who's played by Kathy Bates, which was a cool surprise. And she would torture her slaves and use their blood as makeup in order to keep herself younger. And she did this, because her husband always cheated on her. So she wanted to try and stay younger do anything she could to keep him around and keep him interested, and no matter how many people she had to kill. Well, one day this black girl gives her a potion. It says, if you drink this, your husband won't cheat on you anymore. So Kathy Bates drinks it, and of course she dies, or it's implied she dies, but they say they never found the body. And the reason the black girl did this is because one of the slaves she had tortured was her lover. And she goes up to the attic, which is the torture room, and she sees her lover, and he's hung up on these chains, and he's got this like buffalo head put on him. So I'm sure that in some future episode he's going to be a ghost or something, like a really creepy ghost. And Fiona goes down to the special girl, and the special girl is hearing the owner of the house, Kathy Bates. Well, apparently I missed the entire opening scene with Kathy Bates. My DVR started recording at the intro with the credits and everything. So I thought that's how the episode started. And then when it was over, it started the next episode, the repeat, and it showed this entire opening scene with Kathy Bates. I was like, what the hell is this? So I just got done watching that. And basically what happens here is Kathy Bates, one of her daughters, is trying to sleep with one of the slaves in the house. And she catches him, and the slave says, hey, she was coming on to me, I told her I belonged to someone else. And he's the one who is lovers with the black girl that gives Kathy Bates the potion. But Kathy Bates says, we're going to say that you tried to rape my daughter. She takes him upstairs, and we see all these slaves who have been tortured. They've got like their eyes sewn shut. One of them has their skin ripped off. It was very disturbing. And then she has a bullhead put on the slave who was with her daughter. So that's how the show actually started off here. And it was a very crazy scene. So Zoe finds out that Tate died in the bus crash, and she's pissed off about this. So she goes to the hospital, and she goes to see the guy who raped Madison, the head rapist. And he's still alive. He's in a comatose state, but he's still alive. And she's pissed off about this because Tate died and he was a good person, and this asshole is still alive. And I'm sure Tate's going to be back at some point. But so what she does is she has sex with him, and all the blood starts to come out of his face just like her boyfriend, and he dies. And that was Zoe's revenge. It was a little silly, I have to say. Then we see Fiona, who digs up a coffin, and inside is Kathy Bates, who is still alive and the same age. So I guess Fiona, who also wants to become immortal and stay young forever, once she found out that Kathy Bates was still underground right next to the house, dug her up so that she can find out just how she was able to become immortal and possibly track down that potion. So that was a nice twist ending here, and it was a pretty good first episode. I like this episode. It looks like it's going to be a good season. It's got a nice creepy feel to it. I like the powers. I think they're unique, and it's definitely going to add to the show. I think at some point, and I'm just guessing here, but I could possibly see Fiona the Supreme versus Zoe the Supreme. I think that's going to happen at some point. They're going to clash. Maybe the head mistress gets involved somehow, but I just feel like it's building up to that point, which would be really cool. But yeah, with this show, you really never know what to expect. Usually it takes 4 or 5 episodes before you can figure out what exactly is going on, because they do so many flashbacks and there's so many stories happening at once. But it's a great show. If you've never seen it, definitely check it out. You don't have to watch the first 2 seasons to know what's going on. Each season is like a brand new show. So that's my review of the first episode. Hope you guys liked the video. Leave your thoughts on this episode in the comments, and thanks for watching.